Welcome to the Sportsman's Voice Roundup, your weekly look at conservation and sporting community news happening across the nation and on the Hill. Thanks for tuning in. This is the TSV Roundup. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to this week's edition of the Sportsman's Voice Roundup, your weekly look at conservation news from across the nation. This week's lead story, it's a good one. I'm happy to bring this one to you, and we'll bring Marie Neumiller to you. Washington court lifts block on wolf management amid ongoing livestock conflicts. Some good news coming out of the Northwest. CSF's own Keely Leaguer out of the Mid-Atlantic states was appointed to the Maryland Migratory Game Bird Advisory Committee. We'll tell you a little bit more about that. Wisconsin committee takes up conservation funding companion bill that from Bob Matthews on a topic we've covered quite a bit in the past. And then we'll wrap things up talking about black bears in the South. It's been a popular, fun conversation since the election cycle last year, so the better part of a year, and we'll give you a quick update on that. But we're gonna bring Marie in here, but quick housekeeping. We are weeks away, a short amount of weeks away from NASC. We're well under a month. So if you still haven't registered, do so now. And now is the imperative time to register and get your accommodations, get on all the trips squared away. In doing so, for this listening audience only for the podcast, we are offering a special podcast listener discount only, audience only discount, and that is $50 off your registration. Enter the promo code Birdman at checkout, Birdman. Birdman at checkout for $50 off for those of you who still have yet to register. I don't know what you're waiting for, but let's do it now. You do not want to run short on time and miss what is shaping up to be a really great time in Memphis the week of December 9th. So NASC registration there, and the Purdy shotgun auction will be available to interested auction bidders and buyers. I invite you to go on to congressionalsportsman.org and you can check out the link there for the Will Primos Purdy shotgun auction that is also closing here in a few weeks. So plenty to check out there. All the resources on the website. Sign up for the free stuff. Great deep dives in these articles while you're there for the in-article links. All right, all that housekeeping aside, let's get to the good news of the day. Marie, welcome in. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. How about you?
I'm good. It was a pleasant surprise to read your article and see some, I want to say common sense has ruled the day, but it took a little bit to get there. Tell us what's going on in Washington with wolf depredation and managers being able to manage.
So in Washington State, they have a wolf livestock conflict protocol, and it was originally created by the Wolf Advisory Group in conjunction with WDFW to help guide and provide guidance on how to manage conflicts and what steps need to take place before we reach a lethal removal threshold. So in Washington State, generally, as long as there are um, non-lethal tools in place on the ground, if we get to 3 livestock depredations in 30 days or 4 in 10 months, then the department has the ability to go to a lethal removal. Lethal removal is not a retaliatory tool. It's meant to change the behavior of those depredating packs before they get habituated to livestock. In the Sherman Creek pack, the department had determined that there were proactive non-lethal measures on the ground. The depredations were continuing and were likely going to be ongoing if action was not taken to prevent that habituation. Unfortunately, right when that lethal removal order was issued, a lawsuit was filed in King County, which is on the western side of the state, even though these depredations were occurring on the eastern side of the state. That court did issue a temporary restraining order which blocked the management. At the end of the month in October, there was a hearing. The judge decided that the parties that had filed the lawsuit, which were anti-hunting groups like Washington Wildlife First, that they were not going to prevail with the argument they had brought forward. So the case was dismissed and management is opened back up. So it is great that management is back in the hands of WDFW and taken away from the courts. The unfortunate side is As WDFW has presented at wolf advisory group meetings in the past, there's really a 14-day window, scientifically speaking, where lethal removal is at its most effective at impacting ongoing pack behavior and preventing habituation. Because of this lawsuit being thrown in the middle, we did break away from that 14-day
Mm.
window. So the department is not taking further action on the pack, but they now have those options available to them again.
So if there were incidents to occur again with this being lifted and recognizing the 2-week effective window has been missed, they could still take those lethal actions. It just wouldn't have the profound effect that they would look for pack wide, those younger generations and subdominant critters.
Yes. So if another depredation does occur, I believe that pack is we're outside of that 3 and 30 window, but we're still within that 4 and 10 months window.
Oh, okay, okay. So there's another level
So
to.
that is still an option. And what the department does is they convene a wolf investigation group. They'll look through the situation. They'll look at all the factors that are in place on the ground and the pack's behavior. Then they'll determine if lethal is needed again.
Okay. Yeah, it's not such a cut and dry scenario situation. Um, we're just last week on our feature episode talking with Tom Opry, who was going to be at NASC with his film The Real Yellowstone. We were talking about that. Similar situations going on in Montana and in a lot of these states where you have cattle ranching or any ranching where you have large predators on the ground there and this interaction as well as maintaining balance for everyone and everyone's got their own story, even down to the antis who put a certain value on these things. And uh, that argument I've kind of cast aside as an outlier, but all these other folks and critters that are intermingled here, we understand you can't wipe them all off the map. We understand that there's got to be some deterrents put in place. The ranchers are doing their best to eke out a living, and that is already like an upside down at times lifestyle choice, it seems. And so to lose any of their stock and everything they put into it is it's a big hit to them. So where's that balance? But then when you take the professionals out of the equation, who are there for that balance, that just throws the whole thing out of whack. And now you have multiple sides of this that are everyone's going unsatisfied, left with no solutions. And then, I you like to think that everything's above board, but we know from other parts of the country that ranchers are forced to take matters in their own hands at times, and they don't want to be put in that position, and certainly no one else wants to see that. But this situation gets created, and again, I just acknowledge just how deep it really is, and it's just not so surface level and easy as saying, "You killed my cow, I get to kill the wolf." It's not that.
Yep. And it's not, like I mentioned earlier, it's not a retaliatory tool, but it is something that ranchers depend on as they look down that process. Especially in Washington state, they're working very hard to put non-lethal deterrents on the ground.
Mhm.
They're putting in extra effort away from their time. There is an expense. Sometimes the state can come in and assist, sometimes they can't. Resources are limited all around. But if they're putting in all this time on the ground and doing the best they can to help protect that natural resource and help, with some of the wolf management and managing conflict, then when it gets to a point where those non-lethals are not effective, we've made a commitment that we will then step in and help with that management. And when lawsuits come in, it hurts that relationship
Mhm.
between the department and the ranchers and creates a trust issue, a concern that I'm going to do all of this work, but no relief will come.
Sure. Do you think, and I'm just asking you to speculate, so if you don't feel comfortable answering this, you don't have to. I'll do it for you. Do you think that that's a tactic of the antis knowing and they're very well versed in management and, they need to be when they come to bring their arguments, or they fancy themselves that way. Do you think they're aware of this and they would just use, lawfare, as it were, just to gum up the system?
I really hope that they're not using it to be detrimental to the system, but the cynical side of me fears that that's where we're headed. That
Mhm.
each time we have a lethal removal, we're going to have a lawsuit just because that will impact the scientific management. Knowing that if they delay it that 14 days, it's no longer an effective tool, so it's likely departments won't take it. I
Mhm.
worry that's where we're headed.
Yeah. Yeah, and if they haven't figured out, they're quick to see the results of it and say, "Oh,
Yep.
we stumbled onto something. Let's do this again."
Yep.
Can you give us examples, if you would, of those non-lethal deterrents? Like, what are we looking at? What are the resources ranchers have and the department has to get to that point where we're trying to avoid lethal deterrents?
Yeah. And in the wolf livestock interaction protocol that the WAG put together, there is a full list. And what I'm going to share is by no means exhaustive, but there is a very large list um, within that document that is available to ranchers. Things like fox lights that will light up as that threshold's crossed. Some of them can be tied to radio collars. There's fladgery. One of the most effective tools, but the most difficult to implement, is range riding and effective presence on the landscape as a
Mm.
deterrence, uh, which it's one of the most expensive. And in some of the ranges, especially in the mountainous areas of northeastern Washington, it's very hard to implement, but it can have an effect. Um, Other things include just slight changes to management practice. If you know that you have a salt block for your cattle near a rendezvous site or a den site, moving that salt block away so that the cattle are tending to spend more of their time away from where the wolves have denned up or where they're meeting at. Um, those type of things do require cooperation between the department and the rancher to really get a feel for where the wolves tend to group up on the landscape versus where the cattle are currently, and doing some of that movement. Turning out calves later can also be a helpful tool because once they're larger, they're less likely
Mm.
to have conflict with wolves. Conflict can still occur, but the more sturdy they are, the less likely it is.
Yeah, I as you're talking there, I think about general audience that would listen that doesn't really get into these matters so much to just hear on the surface as a news report. And I've heard this, my work with wild turkeys and then bear to an extent that, well, why don't we just pick them up and move them somewhere else? And it's, yeah, okay, on the surface, yeah, that makes sense. Let's just move away from the cows. The unfortunate part of that, as you know, and other professionals know, is once they are habituated, no matter what the species are, they become someone else's problem eventually. So, like with turkeys, in downtown, Boston, or, Cape Cod, right? Up here, there are people say, "Well, why can't we just trap and transform?" Because those birds are gonna do exactly what they're doing in those city centers, and they're gonna do it somewhere else. They don't know any different. So it's not just as simple as pick them up and release them. Same thing with a habituated bear, same thing with a cattle-hungry wolf. This is what they know, this is how they're programmed, so you just can't pick them up and put them away. It's just like trapping a groundhog, it's in a lot of states, you have rules that you can't trap and transfer critters that lessen your problem, make them someone else's problem, because that's exactly what happens. Um, so again, another more complicated answer to a very complicated issue. It's
And
not just as easy as, just pick them up and put them somewhere else.
yes, and another complication we're seeing in Northeast Washington is how saturated that area is with wolf populations. It's saturated to the point that the wolf ranges are overlapping considerably
Mm,
because there's just so many on the landscape and they're not migrating out. I mean, they are slowly, but not at the rate that the agency had anticipated in their original wolf recovery plan. And we've also seen a collared wolf from northeastern Washington, really close to where I live. He ran all the way back to Yellowstone
yeah,
and they were able to track his progress. So even if you do relocate them, there is a
right.
chance they'll come right back to where they're used to hunting.
That's exactly right. Yeah, 100%. So
Yeah.
what do you do? I guess the unfortunate final outcome, I guess just like bears. I think of bears all the time. And there's no like thought or argument about it. The bear gets into a car, or a bear gets into a person's chicken coop so many times that bears march for death, and it's unfortunate. And then unfortunate when people are bastardizing that and habituating that by feeding and proactively, you know, getting out there and interacting with bears, for example, and then they've created this whole mess on their own, and they have to euthanize the bears. So, um, yeah, it's not good all the way around.
An additional complication we're seeing in the northeast of Washington state is there are currently lawsuits in place by the same groups who filed these lawsuits on the wolf management, attempting to block forestry management in the northeastern states,
Mhm.
particularly logging.
Mhm.
What we're running into is as those mixed sterile habitats, if we're not managing them and they turn into a closed canopy forest, we're losing habitat
Hmm.
on our public lands for elk and deer and moose. And those ungulate populations are moving to the more actively managed private lands. And as elk herds move to those grazing allotments or move into, wheat crops or alfalfa crops, they're bringing that predator base with them. Those
Hmm.
wolves will migrate with the elk, and that's bringing them closer to the grazing livestock. It's bringing them closer to people, and our conflicts are rising.
Hmm.
So these lawsuits are taking away all of the management actions that departments and agencies have available to them and creating the conflict that we're having to fight. So it really is best left out of the courts and in the land manager's hands.
It really is going to take some folks in the legislature to lead and drive on that. I just don't know if, states like Washington have that makeup, if that's even an option where so many of them share the same sensibilities and have the same opinion on it. The science and the professionals be damned. And that's a challenge to overcome in and of itself. You live there. Can the voter show up and in effect change at a ballot box in Washington?
Yeah, I think a big part of it is going to be the ongoing continuing education
Yeah.
and really sharing that message of the North American model of wildlife management and why it is such a positive influence on the landscape.
Now talk to me about the Washington Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus. I see there's a presence quite a bit, and you're very busy with them. How have they been to, information you provide, being an on the ground um, resource for them, and working with them to advocate on issues that we're concerned about, and in particular, this wolf issue?
The caucus co-chairs for the Washington uh, Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus are very great at engaging and interacting. Uh, a lot of our issues have focused on salmon recovery
Hmm.
and our hatcheries because that's been, especially along the Columbia River. In Washington state, we have that added conflict of we've got marine mammals, we've got the southern resident killer whale, we've got tribal interests and recreational fishers all fighting for that resource
Hmm.
and trying to make sure that we're restoring the resource, but also distributing it well. That's been a really big focus there, as well as wildfire management. The nice thing about wildfire management is it gives us the opportunity to bring those conversations into the wildlife management, talking about how proper forestry management protects us against those wildfires while also helping us maintain habitat for wildlife. So we've had really great opportunities, and our coalition partners in Washington are strong and really great at sharing that story. And it's just a continuation of that message and reaching out to more legislators and growing.
Very good. Well, we'll hope for continued common sense weighing in and letting the professionals, as you point out here in your article, to be able to do their thing, and the authority of management remains with the state agency. So, no doubt you got your work cut up for you up there. But we thank you for your leadership and all that you do, and we appreciate your reporting this week.
Thank you for helping highlight it.
You bet. Thanks, Marie. We'll see you in Memphis real soon.
Looking forward.
Yeah. All right. All right. My thanks again to Marie for making some time while she's out on the road there, and bringing us her reporting from Washington. Before we get into the rest of the stories, as always, we ask that you continue to be proactive, engaged listeners of the podcast by subscribing and following where available. Most of you, as I've said, week in and week out, are listening to us on the Apple platform. We thank you. So there you can subscribe every time there's a new drop. You get that right on your device. Gives you an alert so you never miss the latest and greatest. And not that you would, because you're always looking forward to Wednesdays and every other Thursdays, but it's a nice way to remind. Plus, your engagement helps us be found better, more discoverable to new audiences, people that aren't aware of us or may listen to something adjacent to us. And this kind of fits a certain mold. And so the algorithm, whatever it is, the ones and zeros will help push that out based on your engagement, your followership, and then your ratings, there's 5 stars there on Apple. So if you would be so kind, fill all 5 of those out. Same thing in Spotify, which is where the remainder of the audience comes from there. So we thank you for that. And again, don't forget to go to congressionalsportsman.org, congressionalsportsman.org. There, you can subscribe to the e-pub edition of the Sportsman's Voice that comes out every Monday about 5 p.m. Eastern or Tuesday if there's a holiday. And again, you can follow along in article links that you can do a more of a deep dive on a certain article topic, get more cited resources there, and just do some good easy homework there, and we provide those to you, and it's free. So um, that is the pitch there, and let's get back to the show here. As mentioned at the top, CSF's assistant manager in the Mid Atlantic states, Kaylee Leaguer, has been appointed to Maryland's Migratory Game Bird Advisory Committee by the governor of Maryland. Uh, Maryland's migratory game bird management plays a vital role in the success of many species throughout the Atlantic Flyway. The Migratory Game Bird Advisory Committee is tasked with advising the Maryland Department of Natural Resources on issues related to migratory game birds in Maryland, such as providing input on issues that affect sportsmen and women, as well as conservation efforts and projects. Decisions made by Maryland DNR make an impact on the entire flyway, making this advisory committee a great importance to the health and welfare of migratory game bird species. So the committee is a 9-member committee, and as I said, those folks are appointed by the governor there in Maryland and advises the DNR on issues related to migratory game birds in the state. The committee's role includes providing input on expenditures from the Migratory Game Bird Stamp Fund policy, uh, regulations, legislation, and habitat conservation projects. The committee, which includes individuals with practical knowledge of migratory game birds, provides recommendations to the Wildlife and Heritage Service on an annual regulations and other management issues. In November, earlier this month, CSF's very own assistant manager of the Mid Atlantic States and generational Marylander, and who is also a very passionate waterfowler, Kaylee Leaguer, was appointed by Governor Wes Moore to the committee. The Atlantic Flyway is composed of the states of Connecticut, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Carolina, Vermont, Virginia, and West Virginia, the Canadian territory of Nunavut, and the provinces of Newfoundland, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Ontario, Prince Edward Island, and Quebec, plus the U.S. territories of Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. That's a great resource, especially for us here at the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation. Have her on that committee and be able to bring her know-how, her subject matter prowess, and also be able to advise on kind of some bigger things that would help with that committee from the policy world. So, congratulations to Kaylee for that appointment, and we know she's going to do great things there. This from Bob Matthews. We're going back in time a little bit, but giving you an update on the Wisconsin Knowles Nelson Stewardship Program. It's a long time program that has provided land acquisition and habitat management opportunities that benefit all sportsmen and women through increased public access and improved habitat conditions. The program is set to expire next year, and no funding included in the current state budget. This legislation is critical to avoid lapse in conservation investments and to ensure that hunters, anglers, recreational shooters, and trappers continue to have quality places to recreate. Assembly Bill 612 would reauthorize the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Program through 2030 and adjust how stewardship funding is allocated, including support for major land acquisitions program. Earlier this month, Assembly Committee on Forestry, Parks, and Outdoor Recreation held a public hearing on AB 612. and CSF registered in support. AB 612 serves as the funding companion to AB 315, the existing Knowles Nelson reauthorization proposal that focuses on the policy framework of the program. The funding bill, AB 612, was introduced on October 31st and referred to the Assembly Committee on Forestry Parks and Outdoor Recreation. Again, that held a public hearing where CSF registered formally our support of 612 that would extend the authorization for Knowles Nelson stewardship until 2030. Following the hearing, the committee voted on the bill but deadlocked at 6-6, advancing 612 out of committee but without a recommendation. This hearing marked the first formal legislative action on the Knowles Nelson in several months and comes at a time when the future of the program is one of the most pressing unresolved issues of the 25-26 legislative session. In September, CSF worked with in state and national partners to host legislative trap shoot event to discuss the importance of the program and maintain momentum towards its reauthorization. CSF will continue to work with members of the Wisconsin Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus, legislative leaders, and conservation partners to advance a Knowles Nelson reauthorization package that secures long term funding, maintains robust opportunities for land acquisition and habitat management, and protects public access for the Badger State's sportsmen and women. Wrapping things up here, heading down south to talk a little black bear, highlighting the new opportunities to decade old tradition of bear hunting. Nearly every state in the southeastern states has black bear seasons. Most recently, Florida and Louisiana, that we have talked about extensively on the program since their uh, inception, their reauthorization, except for black bear seasons in Alabama and Mississippi. Connor Barker, who's written the article, notes that hunting black bears may not be the top of mind for many hunters in the southeast this time of year, especially with the rut in full swing. However, deer hunters have an array of opportunities to put both their tags to use and fill their freezers in the southeast. While white-tailed deer remain a staple across the regions, hunters can also pursue a less common protein source, but one that is better. That's my editorial. Black bear. Through careful science-based management, black bear populations have continued to increase across the southeast, managed by state fish and wildlife agencies, which are primarily funded by hunters. Black bear populations continue to provide hunting opportunities across the southeast, with some states just recently restoring, as we said, Louisiana and Florida. Despite organized opposition from the anti hunting community, the Florida Fish and Wildlife voted unanimously to reestablish the black bear hunt earlier this year. Beginning a year ahead of Florida, reestablishing the black bear hunt in Louisiana, we talked about that, experienced its first black bear season in decades. 10 of the 11 allotted tags were filled with a 100% opportunity rate. And then, as we talked about earlier as well, following that success, the second year, more tags were available and more funds raised for Black Bear program there. So it's a good windfall as far as wildlife management funding as well. Same thing there in Florida. Kentucky, a state less known for black bears and more for an excellent whitetail deer population, has seen expanded bear hunting opportunities and streamlined regulations over the past decade. After reestablishing the bear hunt in 2009, bear hunting was originally administered via quota, but as of 2022, the Commonwealth regulates the season based on a number of days uh, open to hunting. This move to a simplified model is indicative of the health and the growing population of black bears that presents hunters with ample hunting opportunity across nearly the entire eastern half of the state. North Carolina, a state known around the country as a top bear destination, harvests thousands of bears annually across the state. And again, thanks to careful, highly regulated science based management, bear populations are healthier in the old North state, as indicated by an overall increase of harvest numbers over the recent decades. For example, in 1976, bear hunters in North Carolina harvested a total of 121 bears. Fast forward to 2023, and you have 4,581 bears harvested. So, certainly a more engaged population of bear hunters, and certainly the popularity of it has risen as well. The above mentioned states are just an example of a few southern states that have experienced recent and continued success allowing black bear hunting for their sporting community. CSF encourages states to, when supported by science, pursue opportunities to expand black bear hunting and follow the lead of surrounding states in generating additional conservation funding and providing opportunities for sportsmen and women to pursue one of the most storied animals in North America. No doubt. If you're able to hunt black bear where you live and you're not, you should be. Um, for one, it's a nice way to break up anyone's deer season. If you're having a rut like I am, you would invite some sort of distraction, especially a beautiful black bear walking by. If you've never eaten black bear and you have the opportunity to get some on your dinner plate, I highly recommend it. And I, I I would say that once you've tried it, you'll want it some more. And there's just so much you can do with it. There is some old school fear mongering around bear meat, which is at this point, it's look, if you eat undercooked bear meat, you do run a risk of getting a parasite. But if you cook it the right way and get that right internal temp, you can still have it at your favorite consistency and still be safe about it. It's fantastic. And then if you want to really get into it, you can harvest all that beautiful fat, clean it up, render it down, and you have jars of bear lard that you can keep indefinitely in a freezer, and it's got such a low melting point. It doesn't take much heat. I use it all the time to cook, just as a butter substitute or whatever the grocery store tells me. I'm doing the air finger quotes that it is butter. I really doubt that's what I'm eating, but at least this, I know I've had it in my hands. I've put it in the jar. I've done the whole process. I know exactly what I'm getting. And as long as you're not shooting trash can bears, it's got a great flavor to it. It adds to your dishes there, and it's good stuff. It was always told to me. I don't know if there's a lot of truth to this anymore, but I was always told that European pastry bakers covet bear fat and would pay top dollar for it. I'm not saying go out and sell it. I'm just saying it was a sought after commodity and had a lot of culinary value. So, yeah, you can use that same grease to uh, waterproof, water resistant your leather shoes and really do a good job on that. Bring back any leather item. I know guys that supposedly rub it in their wooden stocks of their gun to condition it. So a multi-use product and a damn tasty one. It's a fun adventure, man. I mean, you guys that have hung around know my passion for turkey hunting, and I put bear hunting at a very, very close second to turkey hunting. It definitely is better than deer hunting to me any day of the week. If I had a chance to hunt bear, and I know there's an opportunity there, I will take that over deer any day. I've done it personally, always. I really enjoyed the hound hunting aspect of it. I mean, bear baiting, bears, golly days, a bait site and the dogs obviously allow you to evaluate and see what you have, which is nice. Um, but the bailing of the dogs and once they go and they get on a track and you hear that, like, it's just instant adrenaline and adventure, and A bait site's great. You barely hear them, and all of a sudden they're there. They appear out of nowhere. But it's so quick. Like the dogs get it going, and that's a whole lot of fun. Try black bear hunting where you can, especially you folks in the South. I've North Carolina for sure, as Connor pointed out, is a destination. I've never done it, but I've seen long ago and been told of the coastal black bear population in North Carolina. I think they're primarily like ag fed. Anyway, they get to be as big as grizzly bears. Big old noggins on them. Um, I think I've seen in the past, if memory serves me, like 800 pound black bear. That's wild, man. And I believe that there is a size difference from the eastern part of the state west. And, that probably has to do with, living in the mountains and getting good exercise as opposed to being a flatlander, just getting fat on ag. But, if you find yourself down there with that opportunity, I mean, that would be pretty cool to shoot a big fat Bruin like that. Anyway, talking too much about bears. We need to wrap the show up. Appreciate you guys hanging around, tuning in for this week. No special feature this week. We will bring you a special feature next week. We're almost to the end of the year. So next Thursday's Thanksgiving. So we may postpone the drop just to one less notification on your phone for those that subscribe and follow. But yeah, next week we will drop our Thanksgiving edition. Maybe you drop it Wednesday as you're fixing pies or getting to where you're going. You can listen to it, maybe become inspired by some of the foodie items we're talking about there. But anyway, got that to look forward to. Then we're talking Christmas gifts, and we're closing the year out with a retrospective look back. So we're almost to the end of another full year of bi-weekly feature episodes. Of course, this program will be to you next week as well. And yeah, hope everyone gets to where they're going safely. Hopefully, between now and then, you're able to secure some wild meat, bring that to the Thanksgiving table, the Thanksgiving buffet. Share it with your friends. One of the best parts of the hunt is being able to do that, especially this time of the year. I will brag a little bit. My son finally, at 12 years old, was able to harvest his first white-tailed deer a couple weeks ago. Super stoked about that. So he has kindly, and at no coercion of my account, maybe a little wink and a nudge, but he has decided to donate half of his back strap, so a full strap, to the Thanksgiving table. We're going to smoke that backstrap. It's very good done that way, and we'll cut that up, put it out for the family to take some taste tests on it. But he's very proud to be able to do that, and any of us are. So hopefully, some wild game taken at your hands will find its way to your Thanksgiving appetizer buffet or the big meal itself. But anyway, all right. So we'll put a bow on it. Be safe out there for those that are still in the hunt and the chase. Get back to your families and get to that Thanksgiving dinner. We'll do it again next Wednesday. Oh, before I leave, I missed it at the top of the show. I do want to recognize our supporters for this week. As always, Bass Pro Shops, Richard Childress Racing, and NSSF. We thank you so very much for your support of the program. Now we'll see you next week. Remember, as always, CSF is your inside connection to outdoor legislation. See you later. Thanks for joining us on this edition of the Sportsman's Voice podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, your support is crucial, and you can help us out right now by leaving a review, filling in those 5 stars where available, sharing this episode with friends and family, and engaging with us socially. CSF can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Together, we can protect the outdoor sports we love and continue to keep you informed wherever you are. That's it for this week. Until next time, we'll see you later.